Today I'll be talking about how we need to give ourselves validation, security, trust, and credit, really, and how this happens inside of time, where time always has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And yet, the beginning of the beginning, or the end of the end, or the middle of the middle, these, it's like we sometimes have to kind of realign the chronological aspects. Like, what is the middle? Am I in the middle? Am I not in the middle? And this comes from being willing to practice. You wouldn't call it time management, you would call it perception management. So I'll say that I'm going to talk a little bit about what time leaping is, what the middle means, what's the middle, and how to be in the middle, because that's really what we want. We want to be in the middle, and that's always got a beginning and an end. And it's the end of the beginning, and it's the beginning of the end, but it's always the middle. So that's kind of like a place to go to give ourselves what we need, and also, giving ourselves credit, giving ourselves individually to ourselves, giving ourselves trust. So in a tapping workshop I had a lot of knowledge come up about myself, and I'll share with you. So the emotions of heat, which is anger and affection, I often recognize I press in, and I don't want to be seen out of control or overflowing, and like I'm not able to handle others, not stopping or titrating their heat. So I end up like repressing myself and also being kind of frozen. Frozen is not heat when others are angry or affectionate. And so I'm learning how to titrate this heat, this flow, which melts the ice, right? So, to heal the coping, the bonding with the object, which what happens is that dead objects are like ice. They're very, very physically dense, and they do not have flow. They're not watery like, smoke. It's kind of like the iPad, the bed, the floor. These are dense objects, and we can bond with these physical dead objects, and they can take us really far to drugs, alcohol, even as a process. So we bond with these processes or objects, whether it's a phone, whether it's, food. And then our expectations seem more likely to get met because we have more control over the intensity of the heat. If it's too much, we go to the other thing. We watch TV, we take a sleeping pill. I mean, people have this lifestyle. We drink coffee, we read a bunch of work emails, we then go for, a bike ride, but the whole time we're listening to the news on our earphones. And I'm not talking about myself, I'm just including myself as part of the collective of us, how we bond and, with objects or processes. And this is the way that we get outside of the time, that heat, because it takes time to thaw. So when I go into my tapping group, and we only have 1 week left, and I hope I make it because I'm moving my home. So, we talked about regret, and we go into these and we thaw out and we find the underlying, and in the ice, it's like under the frozen layers, there's actually this heat that is nourishing and life affirming, and it gives us our wisdom. So we talked about regret, and I thought about a time where I didn't walk away when someone was screaming at me. It was on the Shabbat, on the Sabbath, and I was just following him around as he was screaming at me, and I was trying to answer back, defend myself. I was trying to make him stop, and instead of walking away. So I went into this, I felt pain in my upper right shoulder. It was like a 7 out of 10, and then we did a tapping round. It was at a 5. It moved to my left shoulder, and then we added some other layer, because underneath that first ice layer where we felt through it, I realized why did I get so affected and why did I get frozen is because I felt unable to validate or secure my own self to be able to walk away. So we did another round, and I was at a 4, and it moved to my left armpit, like after that, and like my left outer ribs on the inside. And then we found another underlying emotion, and I felt lost and dependent on someone who was actively abandoning me, who was disrespecting me, whatever the words are. So we did another round, and I went to a 2.5. It moved to my solar plexus. So see, I was getting, deeper into myself, and it was a little bit on the left side, and we added the deeper feeling, and I realized I didn't trust myself. And that was when we did another round, and I felt a sense of greater wholeness. The 7 out of 10, like, discomfort went to like a 1. And I still felt like, there was more to look at later, but I felt so grateful to myself for making progress and feeling proud of myself for facing this challenge, which is that I struggled to validate myself and secure myself, to trust myself. And so a practice I did was I gave myself credit. What are some areas where, I didn't want to abandon this person. I didn't want to like run away from them. In my mind, I thought, oh, I'm being compassionate, I'm being merciful. But actually, I needed to look at the parts of me that have been merciful and compassionate and recognize I don't have to prove it. I just am. And a good way for me to prove that to my mind was to write a list of things. So I gave myself merit. And I said, I already have merit. These are my past credits. And now I start from here. I start from myself and my memories as somebody who actually does deserve credit. And these are some things I thought of, and I recommend you write a list. You write where your merits are that you could remember. And there's tons of things I've done that came up, but these felt right. These felt like they weren't easy. I know they made a difference, like that. Writing thank you cards, Hanukkah cards, for many years now I've been always sharing, like writing letters to people. And I go to the post office, I get stamps, I order them online. I always, have more envelopes. I go to Dollar Tree and get these packages of cards with, blankness, and I write, or I make my own cards, or I buy recycled paper, and then I, design arts for people as cards. And then, that combines with I give so much art away for free for healing. I make art with a special intention, energy in it, and I give it for healing. Dozens and dozens, hundreds just in the last couple of years. Over 300, maybe 400 in the last couple of years, seriously. I've given to people, I try to do a little art every day. And sometimes, it takes me a week to complete something. Sometimes I do a few in one day. They're small. I use colored pencils or paint. And I also remember that I donated to many organizations that were helping women in different countries, animals, endangered animals, zoo animals. I even, when I went to India, went to visit an elephant sanctuary and donated money and, interacted with the elephants, brought them comfort. I've helped homeless people in so many ways. I remember many years ago, like 10 years ago, working at a place, getting more money than I needed, but having no time really to myself. And sometimes after work, I'd go buy a homeless man dinner. Whatever they wanted, and even the last few years, even when I've been becoming more, and then over the last 10 years, I've been on and off vegan, vegetarian, kosher, and, looking at people who wanted me to buy them not kosher food or not vegan food and still getting them what they needed, donating, helping them. I would go around to my neighborhood in a buy nothing, sell nothing group. You should check if they have that in your area. And I would pick up, old sleeping bags, not old, but from people that they weren't using, and they would be clean. And I'd pick up, coats, shirts, hats, socks, toothpaste, and things. And I would deliver it to homeless people who were kind of settled. If someone was on the move, I'd try to get them what they needed on the way. Often when I met, a homeless person who looked really sad, I'd stop, I'd talk a little bit with them, check in with them, how they're doing, open my heart. Let them be helpful to me. Sometimes they wanted to, be useful, so I'd share what's going on with me, and they'd give me advice. And, then I'd say I'd honor my parents even when I felt like in the years my perception was that they were cruel. So this is like the idea of time perception I brought up for a second. I'll bring up a little more soon, but there's this sense of, in the past, there were times where I felt they were so cruel, and I still chose to be merciful and rise above and be compassionate with them and recognize that they couldn't give me what they didn't have, and that they themselves were really judgmental of themselves, and that's why I was feeling the judgment. And then, of course, giving presents, even when I was very, very unable, like I would make things, or I'd go to, make gift baskets from Dollar Tree items. Really, I would try to give presents to newlyweds, for birthdays, with stickers on the package, gift wrapping. I really tried to do my best, and knowing that sometimes the person would be getting so many gifts at once, they may not remember till later. And then there was somebody I supported. He's still a part of my life, but we were taking space now. But I supported him by opening my home to him, made sure he always had what he needed, asked people for help for him, for a coat, for, shoes even, for things he could take care of himself in some ways. But I really did support him, shared my food with him, gave one of my blankets to him, and so on. And then another thing is I tell the truth and be a true friend. There are many people who didn't like me because I wasn't going to people please them as I began my recovery over the years. They wanted me to just say what they wanted to hear. They wanted flattery, and I was willing to tell the truth. And I saw the effects after. I get credit for not getting the ego boost. I get credit for being like a mother who didn't need to be, invited to everything because the person decided Shayna is not so cool, not so fun because she's real. And we want people who are just here to have fun. And of course I like to have fun, but there are, I'm thinking of specific times where, I kind of had like, not that I was trying to hurt people, but that I kind of was the one who wasn't willing to compromise on the truth. And I was willing to stand up for myself or others. And it didn't always make people happy who wanted things a certain way. Another is I, always have been kind of generous with sharing like a joint, sharing some food, sharing a drink when I'm out. Like if I'm getting something, if you're getting something, and I know it makes a difference because I know how I feel when it's done for me. I always, almost every day, do a lot of spiritual readings, and I record myself and to many people who may not even listen or thank me, but I really do it, and I get credit because I know it makes a difference. To people in recovery, people who are not in recovery, spiritual stuff, psychology stuff. Another is I've spent hours and hours helping people in recovery, just totally taking my time, working things out with them, talking them through the obsessive thoughts, giving my feedback. I've also done free guided meditations for people, sometimes 20, 30 minutes, and sent them out. People could spend a lot of money on this. Consciousness work. In my body work, I really helped people unconventionally. I gave my all. I went above and beyond. I had a business, and I didn't just get paid for it. I couldn't sell myself. I give more than I was being asked. And there were many people who needed other types of healing, like emotional healing, sexual healing. And I tried my best to do what I could without violating my own boundaries. And I messed up. I made a lot of mistakes, But I do realize that my intentions were there, like, of course, to get money so I could support myself, but, have a comfortable place to live and food, but also to just take care of people, to give care to people. I traveled so many times, spending hours to see my family, see my friends. I don't think people really have visited me as much as I've gone out and visited people. And that is something I get credit for. I get merit for being able to spend my time with people and go to their events and go to their houses and their celebrations, and also when they're struggling. I've given people chances without prejudgment, even when people talked bad about them. Just checking my nails because I just did them and I don't want them to get ruined. But giving people chances who other people might have said, don't trust that one or don't like that one, and I still did. And of course, hand-making gifts, food even, selecting songs personally for people that I thought they'd like, and, so many people, finding links, finding resources, finding funny pictures, just really wanting to brighten people's lives. And I'll talk now about time leaping, and this is from my few videos I watched, a course by Alberto Villaldo. He talks about time leaping, and he says we've got to recognize time can be a pretzel or a figure eight, and it has many dimensions, the way we know space does, but we really only kind of can talk about linear time because when we speak, there's a beginning of the sentence or a word, the middle and the end, and so you need time to speak. But when we're thinking about it, or when we're experiencing time, it isn't quite so linear. And I have mentioned in a previous video, sacred time is like a wheel. And it's like a cycle. We come back to these things with new versions of ourselves. And like, I pulled the tarot card and it was the tower. And I thought, I've just gone through it. I'm moving. My house crumbled down. I came here because I wanted privacy, to be alone. And then I couldn't handle it. And I had somebody come into my house who, was making my home not feel private or, not alone, but like where I could be with myself. So, my house did crumble. This was my castle and it crumbled and it stopped being my safe haven in some ways. And now it is, and it comes and goes. But, and I also like wanted my body to look a certain way. I didn't remember how it is to feel this way. And so I'm being humbled. I'm really being humbled by my life that things fell apart when I didn't do them. And, a relationship I had, I wasn't looking at God with the other. I was looking at the other. I kept looking at him to be like more godly, more sure, more able. And, I had to make myself small in order to keep making him big. I needed to feel like I could respect him to be godly, but I should look to God directly. So all these things where I made the breaks, there was breaks, the tower falls. And actually what's so interesting is there's 22 flames on the tarot, and that corresponds for the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. My address right now is 22, but also it corresponds to 12 tribes and 10 dimensions of the Sefirot, which are the emanations, aspects of godliness, but also psychologically and divinity. For example, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, light, expansion, limiting, balance, forward, beholding, foundation, and each one of these has, one of them could be eventually resulting in abundance. One of them could be resulting in sharing. One of them could be resulting in empowering because of the way that they work. They're attributes of nature, of the self, of God. It's the coded DNA in everything, in all of the world, in all of the humans, in all of the societies, in all of the animals, in all of nature. And of course, finally, the one which is manifestation. I didn't mention that, but that's like the actualization. And that's, related to royalty. I said 9 of them. That was the 10th before I went into my tangent. And so we can break the brakes of the past and not serve death. What do I mean by that? I mean, what already ended, what we might still be thinking of as the beginning of something, already ended. It already ended. So to be summoning into co-creatorship of what's to come is to be in what's possible. We have breaks in our body. We have breaks, and I mentioned mine. I had break in my humanity, right? I had break in my mind, in my spirit. Just gathering something here. So, breaks in these areas means something ended. And so it's a new beginning. The middle is messy. The middle is the magic. And I'm going to talk about something now I wrote, the messy magic of the middle. And this is what came up for me, and this is what it is to be in the middle. The beginning has ended. Being in the middle of the middle means we always have a beginning, we always have an end. One of my first tattoos was, the key is to remain in a constant state of departure while always arriving. And it's a little bit of paraphrasing from the movie Waking Life, where it's quoted. And that to me is this concept about time leaping. The beginning of the beginning could be right now. The end of the end could be right now, but it's in the middle. So having things to look forward to is to be in the messy middle. Reunions with people I haven't seen in a long time. Asking for a ride from someone I don't know. To go somewhere we're both going. Telling the truth about embarrassing things. Paying attention to my perceptions and my desires. Learning about my preferred hobbies and fun activities, which I may not have known because there's been breaks. Making things meaningful and realized. Facing that I and all that I love are actually going to die. Physically. And, that's why I love the idea of Mashiach, where we all get to arrive into a perpetuity, an eternity together. Where it's not about dying or endings, but about change. That's for another video. Trusting what's beyond the shell or the thorns is as good as the hard parts, which were like the hard parts which were prickly. To feel blessed by people who are sharing their journey with me. To wish healing instead of harm. So it's a new beginning, right? Accepting the invitations to faraway things, because it takes time. And I'm going to finish here with kind of just sharing about Shintoism, because they have a few values in what I'm talking about here. This harmonious way of being. So Shintoism is based on a harmonious relationship with the continuous positive movement of nature's life-giving forces. It has no founder, sacred text, or religious law. The founding belief of Shinto describes the divine origin of gods and rulers, with the Japanese people as their descendants. Shintoism is symbiotic and both polytheistic and animistic, with a devotion to spiritual beings called kami, found in nature. Its 4 affirmations are respect for tradition and family, sacredness of nature, physical cleanliness, and celebratory festivals for the kami. And Senjei Takatomi says, sincerity is the single virtue that binds divinity and man in one. And the reason I read this is not because I'm telling anyone to go follow Shintoism, but I'm saying here that with that end of that quote, that this harmony relationship, which some people have heard of as the Tao or, Chi, here you could see that in a totally different lineage where they have, 0.05 of the world's population, they have 4 million followers at the time of when I'm reading this, there's this idea that everything is godly. Everything is godly, everything is divine. The beginning, middle, and end are always pretzeling into each other because time is harmony, which means you can't have the end while the other thing is beginning unless beginnings and ends go together. And you can't have, positive movement of the life-giving forces if you're not being sincere. And when I say that, I mean within yourself, of being who you're truly meant to be. So you've got to give yourself credit. This is like tying it all in, that even in other cultures, even in other traditions, it's become religions to learn how to give yourself credit, how to celebrate yourself, how to validate your truth, and you got to trust yourself and be secure in yourself, because it says here devotion to your family, to nature, to tradition, and to physical cleanliness. It's like that's treating yourself like royalty. Like they said, the Japanese said, maybe it's just us, and maybe they didn't connect to many others, but they knew we have to treat ourselves like royalty. The godliness wants to live in us. So I just wanted to elevate that, bring that in, and wishing you well, wishing you the middle, the messy magic, which has a beginning and an end in time, and then that you find outlets and inlets to validate yourself, give yourself credit, trust yourself, give yourself security. Thank you for spending this time with me.